Okay, so hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Fall Global. This is where we connect with global first entrepreneurs and remote work experts from all around the world to share their experiences. Our guest today is Celine Hu, Chief of Staff at Slang AI. Celine, thanks for joining us today.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me, Beat.
Celine, you've had this quite the journey across various industries and roles, right? So could you maybe
hmm
start telling us a bit about that path? You know, how how you maybe became the chief of staff at Slang.
Yeah, of course. Happy to. So, my career started in consulting in professional services. So, when I was graduating college and thinking about what I wanted to do with my life, I really didn't know, but I wanted to keep the doors open. And so, I joined a small consulting firm in Boston. We did a lot of due diligences for private equity companies. And through that, I really got to learn about just a variety of different industries. It was a lot of fun. I really loved just like all the learnings I got from it. But in consulting, you're always giving kind of the high level strategy, but never actually going in house and operationalizing it. And so, what I really wanted next in my career was to go into a company and really understand how decisions are made and how the company is built from the ground up. And so I transitioned over to Uber onto their people analytics team back in 2016. I was there for 3 years, and during that time, I really saw kind of the rise, the fall, the rebuilding of Uber, and how important culture had on a company's bottom line, actually. And so after 3 years of doing that, I thought to myself again, okay, like what is it that I want to do next? And it was actually at Uber where I learned about the chief of staff role because a lot of our leaders at the company had a chief of staff. And so it just seemed like an interesting role that really piqued my interest. I did a quick little adult vacation where I went to business school for 2 years. I joined another startup before joining Slang in kind of like a post sales capacity doing operations. And when I thought to myself, okay, I still really want to do this chief of staff thing. And so was on the job market again, looking at roles in the chief of staff space and found myself here at Slang.
And as far as I understand, in your role, you're kind of navigating the crossroads of like a vision and execution. And honestly, uh, striking a balance there can be really pretty challenging, in fact. So, how do you balance long-term strategic planning with the need for this, I would say, immediate results? Especially in such a fast-moving tech environment. Can you talk more about this part?
Yeah, for sure. So I think the fun thing about the chief of staff role is it really is multifaceted and it lets you get really like a bird's eye view across the entire business. I think it was somewhere on LinkedIn that I read kind of like a good framing for chief of staff is culture, operations, and strategy, which I really love. I think it was Clara Ma actually on LinkedIn who came up with that acronym, which I think is really true. Because those are kind of the three core areas you're looking out for. And so, yeah, on the long term, it is very strategic. That's something that I work closely with our CEO on, and making sure that we're never too far from thinking about the next step. And that's something that the entire executive team is thinking about. On the day to day, that is very much like the operational front. And so, what are like the immediate challenges our business is facing? I think for me personally, it's always really important to think through like you're always going to have like a never ending list of to do items. But it's really important to have perspective and understand like what are the most urgent and really important things that we need to get done now versus things that we could probably push to like the next day, the next week, the next month. So I think really being honest with yourself and having a good idea of what are all the possible things on your plate and then kind of portioning them out that way, I think is really important.
Speaking about making decisions, right? As like you mentioned, you have a background in data analytics, right? So
Mhm.
how has this data-driven approach influenced your decision-making process at Slang?
Yeah, so I think at a startup, depending on what stage you're at, finding a good quality data can be a challenge sometimes. I think at the earlier stages, you're gonna sometimes have to make decisions without a lot of just very definitive data that clearly shows you should go in direction A or B. Having said that, I think once your startup does have any data at all, it's always good to use that at your discretion. Uber was very much a data-driven decisions kind of workplace. The previous startup I was at, they were very, very much into their data. And I think Slang right now is we're pretty data driven as well, and we're going on that journey. The one caveat I'll just add is sometimes the data is inconclusive. Maybe the sample size is small, or maybe it's not very obvious what direction you need to make a decision in. And that's okay. I think try to use data where it makes sense, but I would say don't let data slow your decision making just because it's not giving you a clear answer. Because that's why the leadership team is there, is to make the tough decisions. And if you're making enough decisions, I think the aim is always to expect that hopefully 51% of your decisions are right and 49% of them are wrong, but that's part of doing business.
But still, you can say that that background affects how you solve problems or make plans,
Oh
right?
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I think whenever someone, comes to the table and says we should do this and that, it's always like, okay, like why? Show me why. Like, give me the data and help me understand why you think that is the right approach.
Okay, sounds good. Is it a sort of balance between like a data-driven approach and some intuition, or not really?
No, I think there is a balance, right? And that's kind of what I mentioned before with how
Hmm.
sometimes the data is not going to really give you the answer you're looking for. And in that case, you're going to have to just trust your intuition and make a call, because otherwise you're going to get into kind of this data analysis paralysis. Like, I need more data to make a decision. But
Yeah,
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 you're just sometimes it's just not going to be there. The answer is not going to be in the data, and the answer is going to have to be, innate in your gut.
yeah. That's true. Okay, so Slang AI is, from my perspective, is kind of redefining the way business engage through voice AI, right? Can you
Mhm.
talk more about your maybe unique value proposition, and how do you help your clients?
Yeah, sure. So Slang AI is a voice AI concierge, and we help small and medium businesses answer their phone. So right now we're pretty focused on the restaurant market. And when Alex and Gabe, our co-founders, founded this company, their entire hypothesis was essentially that there is voice technology out there. We have kind of these clunky IVR systems where you press one for this, press two for that, or you say like one word responses, and those aren't the most intuitive experiences for the caller, and generally people just really don't like that experience. It's also a technology that is only really accessible by really large enterprise companies who have like their own team of developers to then maintain this crazy complicated uh, IVR kind of voice mapping system. With Slang, what we built is really this out of the box, really quick and easy to implement solution that's really meant to democratize this type of technology for all the small medium businesses out there. There are way more, small medium businesses that could use this type of technology to help them answer their phones. And I think we're uniquely positioned to really win this market because we know that, especially in the hospitality industry, customer service is a huge component of what makes a restaurant really successful. And we care a ton about the caller experience. And so even though we are selling to restaurants, we also know by extension the biggest impact and the biggest footprint that our product actually touches are the day-to-day callers. And so by focusing on really delivering a top-notch, best-in-class caller experience, that's going to also help us service our restaurant customers better.
And so yeah, we see Slang's impact on the restaurant industry, but how do you maybe predict AI adoption will affect like industries outside of hospitality? For example, do you use AI internally for everyday task? And if so, could you maybe share more about that?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, look, AI is like such a buzz, hot word these days. I think most people who talk about it
That's
don't
true.
really even understand it. I think for me personally, in my day-to-day, like ChatGPT, Bard, any of those things to make my day-to-day operations and workflow better, I definitely use for. I think drafting any sort of content or email like as a first pass, I throw into ChatGPT. If we're writing up a job description for a new role, I first put into ChatGPT and just take a look at what it gives me. It's not perfect, right? I think the way I approach it is it's going to give me like 70%, 80% of what I need. But that's going to also speed up my workflow tremendously.
Have you already built your own ChatGPT chat? No?
I personally have not, but I know some of my coworkers who have, yes.
Okay, sounds cool. Sounds cool. Okay, and from what I know, Slang mainly works as a sort of mix of office and remote, right? So with some jobs being fully remote, am I right? Or it's
Yes,
yeah.
yes.
So from what I know, Slang mainly like works as a mix of office and remote, right? So with some jobs being like a full remote.
hmm
So with that, what are the main things you have done to make remote work easy and effective, especially when people are in different places, states, and time zones?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think for Slang, when we first founded the company, or when the co-founders first founded the company, they really purposely wanted it to be a flexible, remote type of culture. And then, of course, during the pandemic in 2020, we were kind of forced into it. I would say, as far as making sure we make sure all of our employees are connected, we're committed to bringing everyone together for annual offsites. And during those times, it's a wonderful way for everyone to finally meet people in person. And I think it's a very like special, magical time because these are people you worked with, over your Zoom screen, but you're finally meeting, and it's always great to kind of see all those relationships really solidify once we bring the group together. I think beyond that, our team is definitely growing, and so I think moving forward, we'll probably also have more just team-based offsites, and so not necessarily the entire company, but bringing together like just an engineering team or just a sales team, or what have you. And I think in addition to that, we do have some hubs in New York and then also in Utah, and so even next week, for example, we have a new marketing person starting, and two folks from the marketing team are flying up to New York to help that person on board and just ramp up quickly. And so I think when there are opportunities to travel to one of the office hubs, we welcome it because it's just nice to see people in person.
Yeah, that's true. And just the question that I have you ever thought about hiring people globally, like outside of the US?
Yeah, it's a great question. We actually do have an engineer that we work with who is based out
Okay.
of South America. And so I think we definitely have thought about it. I think we've had some new leadership team members join recently, and I think as we continue to expand, we're going to kind of lean on them to decide how they want to expand their global workforce. But I think especially for technical roles, definitely, that's definitely a consideration because there are plenty of talented engineers in different parts of the world that I think from like a dollar sign perspective can be more effective and easier
Mm-hmm.
on the wallet than hiring some domestic engineers.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. And sorry, with that, what challenge do you think you would face with that if you decide just go like fully
Yeah,
globally,
I mean, for sure. I mean, so many to list, right? I think from like an operational standpoint, getting their laptops, all of that, we would need to figure out the vendors globally. But I think from more importantly, culturally, I think that's probably the biggest thing to watch out for. I think for any startup and Slang in particular, our culture is a huge part of our secret sauce, is what I like to call it. But when everyone's had this has this great working dynamic and cohesion, that's really important to driving high quality output. And I think when you bring in people who come from a very different culture, it can take some time for both the Americans and also the international folks to learn each other's styles and communication, frameworks, and make sure we're always communicating on the same page. And so I think that's probably like the biggest risk if I had to highlight that because feeling close to your coworkers and really building trust is a core component of
Mm-hmm.
making sure your teams are working effectively.
Yeah. And about that, speaking about the culture, so
hmm
creating a united team spirit among like people from different backgrounds, even in the US, right? And like might be a challenge, right? Can be tough, in fact. So,
hmm
what methods or ways have you worked best have worked best for you in building like a teamwork and maybe this in uniting team spirit at Slang?
Yeah. Yeah, of course. So for us, we are a huge believer in our core values. So we have four core values that we hope is something that really binds and unites our company across time zones and locations. And this is an exercise that we actually completed middle of last year. The co-founders and I sat down and just talked through what are some of the core behaviors we really want to instill and make sure we're still driving towards as we continue to build this company very quickly. And so for us, those core values are number one, overachiever fever. That one is all about going the extra mile and over delivering. So maybe your manager, maybe for you, Vate, maybe someone says, "Hey, Vate, can you, I don't know, record like 10 new sessions next week?" If you're at Slang and you are really living up overachiever fever, you will come back and deliver 15. And so you're always kind of delivering more than what was asked, and that's something that is a core quality we look for when we're hiring. The second one is learner fervor. And so that one is all about prioritizing your own growth and learning new things. I think most people join a startup because they really like to learn new things and they get to dabble in a little bit of everything. And so that's another unifying core value. The third one is humility ability. And that one is all about just being a great, kind, and authentic human being. I think when you're moving really quickly in the startup world and getting a lot of work done, um, it can be definitely a challenging environment, but I think because we're looking for just people who are care for one another, that makes it definitely a much more collaborative and cohesive environment. And then our very last core value is SMB for small medium businesses, MVP, most valuable player. And that one is all about being, customer obsessed, making sure we're delivering to our customers and servicing them in the best way possible. And so I think with those four core values, we really try to infuse that in our interview process. There's always more we can do with that, designing more programs at the company level to really reinforce that. But I think because we have those four core values clearly espoused and shared with the company, when people onboard, they read about them. That's a way for us to really make sure we have the same culture across all of our different remote workforce.
And basically, for those talent who are listening to us right now, who are maybe based in Latam or in Europe,
Hmm.
for those maybe who are looking to break into AI and the tech
Yeah.
industries, what career path advice can you offer? Are
Oof.
there
I
specific
mean,
experience or roles you believe are critical for building this solid
yeah.
foundation in
I
this field?
mean, I think in this field, in AI specifically, it's such a new field and things are changing all the time. And so I think if you wanted to be on the R&D side, definitely staying on top of just like what the latest news is in AI. I think for every single role, though, no matter what role you are interested in tech, whether it's AI or other, I think having like a deep level of curiosity is something that is really important to have. I think startups exist because you're disrupting something, you're building something very new, and part of that is constantly kind of questioning things and asking like, does this make sense at every left or right turn? And so I think having a deep level of curiosity will really bring that because ultimately you're not accepting the status quo. So that would be the advice I shared to your listeners and
Okay, yeah,
viewers.
that's a good one. And maybe could you shed a light on Slang's hiring process? Maybe what can candidates do to stand out and demonstrate their like you said, you're really about
Hmm.
like values. What they can
Hmm.
do to demonstrate their alignment with your values and vision.
Hmm. I think I just gave you the blueprint by giving you all the core values, but I think the process is, there's for most of the roles there's a pre-screen, then you're talking to the hiring manager at some point. Depending on whether you're interviewing for a technical or non-technical role, there might be more steps in between, and then the final stage, you would meet with our CEO for a core value screen. And so that's like the overall high level process. But as far as how candidates can really stand out, I think someone who has done their research is always, in my mind, like a good indication that this person is serious. I think it can be a tough job market, and so I understand people are kind of just applying to whatever and seeing what lands. But if you're showing up to an interview and asking questions that you could have found on our website, that to me doesn't really indicate that you're very serious about like our company. So that's one really easy thing is just go into it with asking really good questions, showing that you have done your research. And then two, I think especially in the stage that Slang is still at, we're looking for builders. We're looking for people who are really comfortable in an ambiguous environment because truthfully, our managers don't necessarily have time to check every single thing you've done, dot the I's or cross the T's. And so if you're someone who's a go-getter and really excited to get things done, then I think Slang is the right environment for you.
It's a good one. So probably my last question.
Hmm.
Slang raised 20 million, right? So
Hmm.
can you discuss the future innovations or maybe plans in terms of expansions that Slang aims to bring to the market with these investments?
Yeah, for sure. So with that investment, I think typically at Series A, it's a mark of approval of like, hey, you found go to market fit, like let's scale this up and see how far you can get. And so for us, we're definitely spending a lot of that money on just building the team. Your workforce and talent is usually going to be your biggest P&L item. And so for us, it means expanding our sales team, expanding our engineering and product teams so we can continue building more great products. So for us, we're definitely going to be focused on the restaurant industry for the foreseeable future, but I think another vertical isn't too far down the line, and so I think we do have our eyes set on expanding into some other verticals. But for now, the focus is still on the hospitality industry.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your insights. It's been a great
Yeah, of course.
conversation. Take care and best of luck with all your future and current projects.
Yeah, thank you so much, me. Yeah, and the same to you. It was really, this is so much fun. Thank you.